Alright guys, so let's move on to add some more detail on this garment. Now one of the things I want to add is some stitching, right? Some stitching because it's not a whole piece. We have those polygroups that could be useful, but for now, let's just use stitching to do that. Okay, there are many ways you can, actually two ways primarily for me to do stitching. One is using stitch brush, another one is use curved stitch geometry. So let's do stitch brush first. So I'm going to create a alpha for that stitch. I can go ahead and go to a poly plane right here. Alright, zoom in. Let's make it polymesh 3D so we can edit it. I'm going to control and drag, maybe a third of its length here. Use rotation, alt click on that edge to reposition it to that very edge. Let's turn on perspective. I'm going to actually rotate it this way and make it bigger. Right. Now clear the mask and the BZM again here. Use the modeler to bevel the edge right here and bevel this edge too. Now this is gonna give me, if you press D button and yes, always yes, you got this nice overlapping kind of shape over here. Now we have some really weird deformation. That's because those are creased, this is not. We can just do a crease again, which is underneath geometry, crease to crease it. And that way we can press D again. As you can see, it's holding down nicely. I don't want that guy to still bend. So I guess I can just add edge loop there at BZM, insert edge loop. And just add one here, another one here, just to tighten it up. Very old school workflow. Maybe you can use creasing to really force it to not move, but that's also working anyways. Now if you press D, you get a really sharp rectangular with this in the middle. Now why are we doing this? Because we can convert any geometry like this into a alpha. To do so, I'm going to go to alpha. Actually, let's move on to BST, which is standard. And go to alpha. Let's, choose any alpha that is a square, like this guy. And then we'll go ahead and do crop and fill, and yes, that's gonna make the document only 512 pixels wide, and also fill in that alpha here. I'm gonna Control N to clear the canvas, and then go to the stroke, change that to freehand, and drag rectangular back. If yours is rectangular, then you don't have to change that, and then drag out the geometry again and press T button to start editing. Now what's happening here now is that I can actually move it to make it face me right away. Make sure that you don't have perspective, and press F button to really frame it to this perfect square. And we can go to alpha again, and this time we're going to go for grab document. That's going to grab that as the alpha. Okay. Now if you start using rectangular dragging and standard brush, you can drag out this shape. You make the brush bigger and maybe smaller focal length. Right? You can drag out this kind of like shape. Now depending on how detailed your model is, you can Control D to subdivide it a few times and drag out. As you can see now it's basically mimicking that shape. Now this document is a little small, so I'm gonna go to the document and change the size to, instead of 240/56, I'm gonna go for 1K. And then I'm gonna say resize, and yes, Control N to clear the canvas, drag out a new guy and press T button. It's a little big actually for my monitor, so I'm gonna go for maybe 800 and resize, and yes, okay, Control N again, drag out, press T to start editing, and F to frame it. Okay, that's a proper size, so I can see both top and the bottom. Alright, so we want a little bit more detail for this brush, right, for this alpha. We can actually drag this up, drag this in, drag this up, drag this in, just give it some wobbling edge, because the stitching edge should be more or less like this kind of like wobbling effect. The thing you don't want to touch though is the edge, because if the edge is not touched, then it's consistent, it can repeat itself. Okay, so now if I do grab document one more time, oops, let's not do that on the move brush, let's go back. Let's actually just use this stitch brush. Stitch brush actually repeat the stitches. Okay, now if we go to alpha though and do grab document, we're changing that to this brush we're creating now. Now you can see it's having some really ugly edges. Now to fix that, you can go to the alpha, modify, and you can say the mid color here, which is, let's see which one is it. Oh, mid value right here. I don't know why I keep looking for that. Drag that to 0, right? Because ours is actually a perfect alpha, so you can drag out. You can see now we're basically repeating this shape on the surface of this model. Right. You can see that wobbling effect on the edge a little bit, right? Cool. So that's not even interesting enough. So I'm going to go ahead and do more varying here. I'm going to actually dig in a hole here using clay build up. A little bit further away from there. Another hole here, and let's smooth this hole out. And then I'm going to use clay build up to draw a little stitch here. And we know that it's going to repeat it when we convert this into a alpha and use that brush. Right, so smooth that out a little bit, should be fun. Polish it. Anyway, so just a little bit stitch like this, right? I'm gonna go back to that stitch brush, right? I'm gonna go alpha again and grab document one more time. Okay, now if I go ahead and do some drawing, I can see now I'm basically repeating that stitch now on this you know, on this model. So this is basically how you create your own repetitive stitching or other kind of like brush like this. Now you can do all sorts of shapes if you wanted to. Alright, so let me go ahead and move this over. Okay, if I can. And then let's see, I'm gonna grab this guy, smooth it, invert it, and then maybe move it over a little bit, clear the mask. Oh, that's not good. Let's blur it just a little bit more before I move it. Alt click here to make the gizmo oriented to the surface you're working on. Just wanted to drag it closer. I'm gonna actually create a double-sided, or actually two seams brush. I'm gonna move this over to the side. It's F and move it, holding down Shift. Oh, I cannot really do that. Anyway, just move it to the side, right? I'm gonna Shift S to create a snapshot, and I'm gonna rotate it to the other direction, and also move it in here and match it right here. It should be a little bit higher than that. Oh, I need to actually zoom in a little bit so it's not having that edging. Shift S again just to fill in that. Okay, now let's see if this works, right? I'm gonna go for alpha, then grab document one more time. We have this now, and we can drag out this double stitch like this. So you can do whatever crazy thing you want to do to create interesting stitch brushes, and there are many brushes available online too. If you are interested, you can download some of those brushes. Okay, so with those brushes being created, we can now go back to the garment we're working on, and but the document can be a little bit bigger now, so I'm going to change the height to 1000 and turn off the proportion constraint, right? That to 1000, and this guy can be actually a little bit wider than that, and I'm gonna reset it, and yes, okay. Control N, drag our model out, press T button to start adding it again, and now I can use my alpha here, right, to really start drawing some interesting shapes. But when I'm drawing on my model, I'm not seeing it appearing. That's because our model haven't got subdivision level yet. Okay. Before we do that, we have a thickness problem here. So let me actually go ahead and fix that. So I need thickness there. To do so, I'm gonna go BZM and then go use extrude polygroup all, right? I extrude it inwards. Cool. Oh, actually not polygroup all, just all polygon. Extrude that inwards to give me this thickness for everything, right? Now that's basically how you add thickness to the garment. But if you know, are from Maya, you kind of like, or you intend to actually have this retopologized in Maya. Now this is actually not quite nice because retopologizing really hate this really clean or close faces. So when it is possible, avoid that. So I'm only gonna have that happen on this sleeve part. So Control Shift and click on this guy. Turn on symmetry by pressing X and use move, holding down Control and drag from there. As you can see, when you control and drag from that point, it's going to create a mask based on the topology, right? I'm going to Control W to mask those areas. So that way I have a way to differentiate the sleeve part and the inner part, which I don't really want. So now I'm going to Control Shift and click on that, and one more time to hide it. Then I'm going to do delete hidden to kick that out. D button to preview. Now we have a fake thickness on every part of this garment. So now I probably don't really need this edge here, right? This purple edge. So let me also delete that. Control Shift and click on this guy. I want to keep the ones on the sleeve, so Control Shift and drag, holding on Alt to hide these guys, and Control Shift click on this guy to reverse the isolation. Hopefully, or we have more, not sure. Let's Control Shift and drag to reverse the isolation. I just need the sleeve to be there anyways. So as long as the sleeve is okay, I'm happy. So I'm gonna do delete hidden right away to kick the others out. Alright, now we have a clean geometry that we can safely go Control D to subdivide it a few times. Alright. Now you can see this edging in part that is not quite nicely. Oh, it's actually not edging in that much because we do have fixed it by, you know, actually having these guys edging out a little bit, so it's okay. But if yours is edging out, if you Control D, you can see it's going inward a little bit, shrinking. You can do a creasing right here. Geometry crease. Now if you Control D, it will hold there properly. Oh, before I forget, I do want this bottom part to also have some nice edging, right? So I'm gonna Control Shift, actually duplicate this guy, right? Control Shift, oh, use BSI, which is slice curve. I can Control Shift and slice a shape that is wrapping around the bottom. Alright. And then I can Control Shift and click to hide the ones I don't want. I just want a little line on the bottom, so I don't need any of these guys. And do delete hidden. Okay, I can of course tweak the shape if I wanted to. Turn on symmetry. I can tweak this guy. And then I can do, just to make things cleaner, how about a zero measure, right? So I'm going to do a zero measure right away. And let's go half, click, and click, and click, and click, and click, until it's simple enough, right? And then we can BZM again, and extrude out the thickness for this edging part. Not quite fitting nicely here, I just need to use move to reposition it properly. Right, no big deal. Maybe tuck it underneath that thickness. Up here, this guy can go out just a little bit, right? And this guy can go in. All right, cool. Let me turn off the symmetry and fix this part separately. So this part should go in a lot, actually. So push that in, and push these guys out. When you're using move tool, holding down Alt and drag is going to push them along their normal. Anyway, we have this edging now. Press the button. As you can see, it's quite nicely fit, if not completely. So I'm gonna drag these guys. Oh, one more thing I think I did wrong is that I have symmetry on when I was doing zero measure. That's gonna actually have the other side symmetry the same as the other side. So when you have symmetry on, zero measure will create a symmetrical model eventually. But it's still looking good anyway, so I'm gonna be happy with that. Anyway, finally we got a chance to actually go Control D to subdivide the model a few times. And we can now use our stitch brush, right? So let's use that stitch basic and just switch alphas, right? We can apply. Oh, if it does something weird, like it's not really doing like repeating anymore, you can go check the stroke and make sure that you have the modifiers row on, and that's gonna allow you to really repeat that. Okay, and lower down the strings and start dragging to create that stitching. Okay. For the alpha, seems like it's a little blurred. I'm not sure if it's that or not, or it's just because the brush is like this. Let me change the foreground shift to negative, so that way it's not blending to the edge. Maybe it's just a little bit backwards, so it's blending better with itself. Anyway, so that's basically how you create stitch. Brush, and again you can also turn on the lazy mouse, right? So lazy mouse, you can drag out a smoother result. Oh, and one more thing here, you can also go back to the morph target and turn on the store morph target. What that does is now if you drag a little stroke, you rotate the camera and start dragging again, it's going to continue from that stroke, right? And a really nice feature added in 4.8 for you to repeat the same thing without having to try to make it perfect at once. Yeah. Again, I'm not a big fan of trying to make these guys perfect. I just need to have something over there, right? I probably wanted to have the other alpha I created for this little part. It's a little coming a little too strong, so lower down the strings, drag that out. Have some blending issue again, so focal length can go back a little bit. Alright, now I can turn on symmetry if I wanted to. Oftentimes it works if it's quite symmetrical enough, but sometimes it doesn't, so you have to be careful. If it doesn't, then you have to do it separately. So we have a stitch there, right? We have a stitch here. We need another one on the other shoulder, so let's do that right here. This guy should be a little stronger then. If you're interested in like how to go even further with this, let me turn. Yeah, we are having dynamic size, so I think it's okay. Not quite like it's doing the right job, so let's reset the brush. Sometimes I get confused. I'm gonna go back and reapply my alpha. That should be what I need, right? And then go ahead and go to brush, alpha, and don't use any mid values. It's gonna give us nice blending already. Okay. Cool. So just have these guys created here. Alright, I can fix that by doing some sculpting, but yeah. So some of the things when you get to here, it's a little hard to do. Okay, so I'm just gonna ignore that. Oh, do I have symmetry on? Let me turn on symmetry. I don't really need that to be drawn on the other side. So yeah, that's basically the stitching brush. You can now go ahead and enjoy doing some nice stitching. It's a little bit smaller there. And merge it. Darn it. Okay, cool. So I need one there, probably need one going from the back to there, right? The same thing here. And for the back, I can also use the stitch brush, curve the big guy here, and I can do one more going down to there, another one going down, or the other direction actually, goes up. Alright. And what else? You can go crazy with this, so not sure how far you want to go with this, but yeah, you can play, but definitely play with all those possible things here. So that's gonna be one of the ways you do stitching, right? So let's just keep those guys like this way, but you can keep adding new stitches if you wanted to. Actually, I wanted to just add a little bit here, right? Just have some fun with it. We got one more here. Okay. It's actually going outside. Alright, this tutorial is getting a little long, so I'm gonna stop it right here. I don't want it to be like a long tutorial just showing you like how I did everything exactly. It's just now I show you the technique, you can do whatever you want with it. Okay, so that's gonna be it for this tutorial. In the next one, I'm gonna show you another way of doing detailing, like maybe we can create some, you know, shoulder pad, or you know, some other patches around the sleeve, so we can really make it more complicated. Okay, see you next time.